tell us who you are and a little bit about what you do, just as an intro.
I'm Erik Demaine, and I'm a professor of computer science at MIT. And
Just that, you know.
yeah,
I mean,
that's my
you
usual
know,
intro.
But what's do you have like
I
a?
I study lots of things around figuring out what computers can and can't do, I guess, and I'm a particular fan of what I like to call recreational computer science, which is sort of the Martin Gardner recreational math taken to the more computational side.
If you'd never heard of Martin Gardner, if you'd never published any of this stuff, without math, without the gathering, where do you think you'd be?
Huh. I guess I'd probably be some computer programmer writing code, but not really caring about the code that I was writing. It's probably the other thing I would be doing. But yeah, somehow for me, mathematics provided a kind of grounding for computation and what it all meant and why it's interesting that really I'd be a much sadder person without.
Well, it's a good thing that we're here.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, recreational mathematics, something that I discovered through the Gathering for Gardner.
Right.
And I love recreational mathematics, but I have a difficult time explaining it to my friends who can't really reconcile those two things together. So, how
Right.
do you explain recreational mathematics?
I mean, I guess in general, recreational mathematics is supposed to be math that you do primarily for fun. But it's a little hard to define because what's fun is different for different people. So you might consider whatever your field happens to be just to be fun, so why not call it recreational? But I think recreational mathematics is usually about topics that are fun in their own right, even when you're not thinking about them mathematically. So things like puzzles, games, magic, these are all topics that people enjoy experiencing or playing with or looking at, and they don't have to be a mathematician to appreciate that. But then they also have lots of deep underlying mathematics, and so to study that just because it's cool and it's fun, that's recreational math.
As somebody who's seen your lectures from the past, many gatherings, you always seem to find very recreational, interesting uses for sort of these mathematical principles. Do you have a favorite? It's hard to say one, but do you have a favorite few?
So the first geometry problem I ever worked on as a grad student is a problem from Martin Gardner. He wrote about it in the 60s, and it comes from the magic community. Like Houdini do this trick where he'd take a piece of paper, fold it flat, make one straight cut, and make a regular 5-pointed star, just with one cut. And so in his column, Martin Gardner asked, what are the limits? Is there some general theory? Can you make anything? Could you make a New York skyline? What's possible? And so my dad and I started working on this problem when I was a grad student and solved it. And we proved that you can make anything you want, at least in theory, with very thin paper. You can fold it flat, make one straight cut, and get any polygon you want, any shape made out of straight sides.
Wow.
So that holds a special place in my heart. And my first gathering for Gardner, I showed a bunch of examples of that. This is G4G12. This folding stuff that started as like just a recreational endeavor, trying to generalize magic tricks, turned into this whole sort of industry and is, saving lives and impacting the world in totally unexpected ways. And people use our solution for the fold in one cut problem. People use that to design how to fold airbags more efficiently, so they, don't kill you. Things like that. So
it's a useful thing to have.
Yeah, but how would you expect that to come out of a purely recreational pursuit? I mean, you never know.
Right. So tell me about the first gathering that you came to was G4G5, right?
Right.
And did you sort of know what you were getting into, or did you have expectations, or sort of tell me your experience sort of coming into this community?
Do I remember? Yeah, I remember hearing about G4G4, and then somehow I got invited to the fifth one, and definitely didn't know exactly what I was getting into. Probably the most striking feature for me still is the magic component. But like to bring all these different circles together is pretty fascinating and definitely not what I expected. Now I feel like Gathering for Gardner has become its own kind of entity where there are people who do things that are, it's sort of like what Martin would do, what Martin would study if he was a mathematician, or if he was a puzzle designer, or if he was a magician. And so you get work that's done kind of for here that is appreciated by this community, but doesn't fit into any other box. Even though most of the people here come from some other community, like their magician or their mathematician first, but then there's like this own kind of subcontinent where it's kind of separate from all those worlds.
It does seem that not only was he inspiring with the subjects that he was interested in, but also just his passion for these subjects has sort of been passed down as well. And
yeah, somehow this approach that he takes of being open and flexible to like taking different ideas and combining them together, or taking different, or combining math with puzzles or something in ways that you wouldn't expect. That kind of philosophy and also the openness and the sharing approach, I think you see that from Martin, but inspiring all the community here. It's kind of funny because probably most of the people here have never met Martin Gardner, but they've all been super influenced by him through his writing and through this community.
Do you have a favorite memory from any of the gatherings, or a favorite? It could just be sort of interaction, somebody you've met as a connection, a collaboration, any sort of thing like that.
I mean, meeting the magicians has been super cool in the way they're very sharing and open about and showing connections, because especially coming from the mathematical world, I really don't know the magic literature very well. There's so many older magicians here who have like this repository of knowledge and say, hey, there was these really cool card shuffling tricks over here, you might check out that. And I'm always looking for interesting ideas to try to generalize mathematically, either to get interesting math problems or to ideally feedback and like make new magic tricks or new puzzles or whatever. So yeah, all the cool people are here.
I think the magicians are sort of doing the same thing, that.
Yeah,
that's the beauty of the gathering, is everyone's an expert at something, but then completely new to this other field. So I appreciate math, but don't know a whole lot about it. And I think your expertise in mathematics versus magic is sort of inverse to mine in magic and mathematics.
Yeah, so we like to dabble on the other side, but we'll never be like a professional on the other side.
Right. So collectively, these sort of new ideas arise because you have all the separate components.
Right.
What you need for the ultimate discovery, I suppose you could say.
Yeah, I mean, I think where we meet is in the passion, right? We're all really excited about what we're doing, and we all have a lot of fun doing it. And so there's kind of a common language out of that works really well.
Yeah.
Well, like, when did Martin Gardner stop writing for Scientific Americans? Like mid-'80s?
I don't have that number on me.
I'm pretty sure it's in the 80s. So, I mean, when I was growing up, I don't think Martin Gardner was active, but yet he was still a big influence on me. So I think in some sense the Gathering for Gardner is kind of the replacement for Martin Gardner. The people here are doing the exciting recreational stuff with mathematics and puzzles and magic, and continuing to sort of live that ideal and continuing to inspire people. I mean, it's no longer one person. I think it would be really hard to replace Martin Gardner with one person. We need this kind of big population to dabble on all the different sides, and through that body of work we get these volumes dedicated to Martin Gardner, and that's sort of become the replacement of here's the cool stuff to inspire people to get excited about mathematics again.
It does almost seem like each one of us is holding one little tiny torch of Martin Gardner,
right?
Carrying this one thing that he was passionate about onwards and sharing it.
Right.
And he was somehow able to just have, sort of carry all of it.
Right. Whereas to do all the things that he could do, that's really hard. Yeah. I mean, that is definitely a full-time job, probably multiple.
Yeah.
But together we can collectively hold all the torches that he was holding and see what happens next. I mean, it's funny because I don't know that he really knew how much he impacted, say, research and mathematical research, because I think he was just having fun. But he just sort of opened so many doors and got so many people excited that his name is everywhere.